it went into a dormancy period until the mid-'80s, when a high recruitment phase began. I was one of the members that was recruited in the mid-'80s, 1985. There were about 20 or 30 of us that were made members. About 30 of us began thinking about advancing financially. In fact, my first endeavor at an extortion was in Folsom State Prison. Me and David Galvedon, Spider from Cantaranas, who is a current Mexican Mafia member at Pelican Bay, his house in the Pelican Bay Shoe. We thought about creating a kitty. We would ask all individuals going to the canteen or the commissary in the shoe to contribute a small item, so that new individuals arriving would have a surplus of goods, coffee, tobacco, shower shoes, cosmetic items. It wasn't for our personal gain, but it was to enhance our well-being, the well-being of the group. Lo and behold, the individual that was approached in one of these attempts to extract monies from the commissary was a friend of Joe Morgan. He happened to be a young paisa. Well, he went to Joe Morgan and told Joe Morgan that we were extorting him, which really wasn't the case. We were attempting to create a kitty. Me and David Galvedon were then isolated in the yard by Joe Morgan, Angel Valencia, Nico Velasquez, Waroshai Shryak, and Joe actually admonished us quite harshly. Told us this wasn't a charity. If we wanted to make money, make it on our own. We can't have our hand out. And I always had a bad sense from that. I had a bad feeling that Joe had invoked this moral superiority against us. I thought that that type of thinking was antiquated. Organization that doesn't have the power to generate finances, even in this pittance in this form, was antiquated in its thinking. That stuck with me for a long time. About 15 years later, Joe died. Benny Peters died. But we were well on our way. In 1992, we had came up with a concept of stopping drive-bys. It started with a guy named Gilbert Maurice. He just came up one day and said, "We can stop the drive-bys." And this guy is intellectually challenged. Mo is not a bright guy, but he came up with a great concept. So a few of us sitting around looked at each other, and we expounded on the idea. We discussed it, and we knew that we could do it. Our first idea was to involve law enforcement, have law enforcement get everybody together in a meeting, and we nixed that idea immediately. We can't involve ourselves with law enforcement. We were then active Mexican Mafia members, to a process of meeting of the minds within incarcerated settings. I was in county jail at the time and had free access to the phones. I had communication with the commission, Ernie Castro, Jesse Paloma Reno, Black Nambrella, Waroshai Shryak, my main political support in the organization. And we brought this about. I was the incarcerated enforcer, if you will. I was the one that spread the wire in prison, and they were the ones that brought about the meetings in the streets. We brought about the meetings it was guised in mob morality. Innocent women and children being shot in these drive-bys by stray bullets. So this is the thing we brought about. No more shooting women and kids. If you're going to do it, walk up and do it. At this point in time, we had a basic template of what we wanted to achieve, is to establish reps in every gang throughout Southern California, throughout all of California if possible. And this, in effect, took place. And we established a program. We started taxing all illicit activities in the neighborhoods. This is when the organization took a real hurdle towards legitimacy in terms of the organized crime world. This is when the organization actually effectuated its horizontal integration into society and the gang subculture. We had already been ingrained into the minds of the subculture for 50 years. This was a step towards the realization of this dream by progressive thinkers. There are a group of individuals in the organization who are progressive thinkers. Contrary to what people believe, it's not all about cholos and gang members with tattoos and khaki pants and red headbands. This is not the organization that I was part of. The organization that I belong to, which we created and forged through these times, was a group that thought about not controlling prison yards, but infiltrating society, because that's where the real money was at. We understood that without money, we weren't even an organization. We were just a prison gang. And the Mexican Mafia members are loath to call themselves prison gang members. They have great antipathy for people who consider them prison gang members. They believe that they're true mafiosos. So this was the first step in the realization of true integration into society. I mean, this is the metastases of the organization. From beyond prison walls, with concertina wire and electrified fences, the most secure prisons in the United States, into your communities. And in 1992-93 was the real effectuation of this occurrence in the organization. The Mexican Mafia of today. The organization has truly effectuated some of its primary objectives of infiltrating society, emanating from beyond the prison walls. And this was basically done through the stopping of the drive-bys in the early 90s. The organization has established multiple cells of independent criminal activity in what we call crews. Each member has the ability to establish a crew, with him being the figurehead. He has the ability to create an organization with multiple tiers of leadership, which generate huge amounts of finance. Independent members and collectively, the organization realized that they made a serendipitous discovery. It was just like El Dorado, gold in the streets. When we stopped the drive-bys, we organized the street gangs, we realized that there was free money to be had. And this is really a gold mine for the organization. This is a group of individuals who have little or no education, who organized 60, 70,000 gang members with one edict, and then realized that there was money to be gained from this. The progressive thinkers in the organization pushed it towards a sculpted and highly reticulated organization. And you'll see this with the individuals who have strong business acumen. They establish crews with well-established leadership, well-established communication methods, and very lucrative. One instance of this lucrativeness or the profitability in these crews is Francisco Martinez, Pancho from 18th Street. He ran a organization or a crew that was well into the 6 and 7 figures on a regular basis. They apprehended his wife at the time of her arrest with $500,000 in cash under her bed. And this is really a pittance of what they earned. Another individual is Bat Marquez. He took the organization internationally into Mexico and infiltrated the cartels. But the organization still has potential to realize. This is really in its nascency. This is a group of individuals who have no business training, no formal education, who are sculpting a true syndicate. In the very sense of the word, much as Meyer Lansky and Lucky Luciano did at the turn of the century in the early 30s. This is organized crime evolving in front of law enforcement's eyes. Left unchecked, it has real potential to develop into something huge. As it is now, the organization controls most Southern California street gangs, and it does so with almost complete authority. Although there's some resistance in the street gangs, or gangs that are green-lighted and targeted, that is the impending threat that the organization holds over them. We've always been stumped as to why individuals would surrender their autonomy to us, adopt our ideology, do our bidding, and kill for individuals 1,000 miles away that they don't even know. We could send a message to a street gang and say, John Q has to go. And people we don't even know, will never even meet, will kill that individual. Sometimes not as efficiently as other times, but it's done. Our word is adhered to. And we've always been stumped as to why this occurred. I believe it is the overall sense of the threat that's been established by the organization. Every street gang member understands that eventually he'll come to jail. And the Mexican Mafia controls the jails. Be it federal prison, state prison, county jails, YAs, the Mexican Mafia has influence in all those institutions and controls them for the most part. There are systems of leadership that are established in prisons as well. The Mexican Mafia is well ingrained into all correctional facilities. But this impending threat, this understanding that they're going to come to jail because they are involved in illicit activities and criminal activities, coupled with the fact that the Mexican Mafia has a base of over 1,000 murders under its belt, is a very threatening motivation. This overall sense of intimidation is the bread and butter of the organization. And I think this is the main control it has on street gang members, that and the green light list. The green light list is a recent phenomenon which the organization perfected during the stopping of the drive-bys. Gangs that were resistant to stopping drive-bys were placed on a green light list. They were then approved by assault by all neighboring gangs. So in effect, one gang was targeted by all neighboring gangs. They didn't incorporate one enemy, the Mexican Mafia. They incorporated, by virtue of the fact of being placed on that green light list, multiple gangs were then their enemies. Very effective tool for the Mexican Mafia. This was also later tweaked to become a form of finance generation. The organization would place specific gangs on green light lists and charge them $10,000, $15,000, $20,000, whatever they could afford to pay, to come off the list. So it's extortion, intimidation, murder. The organization has since progressed into really a budding syndicate. There's no other way to put it, with unrealized potential. Left unchecked, it has the future to replicate some of the successes of some of the better known organizations like the Italian Mafia, the Chinese Mafia, the Russian Mafia. So it has true potential in the future. Different factions in the organization. There are 3 distinct factions in the organization which are recognized by each other. One is the California faction. The California faction is about 40 or 50 members. It's based on egalitarian principles. One man, one vote, majority rules. It doesn't often happen that way. Some individuals are more equal than others. Obviously, in a crowded room with 100 individuals, some people are going to stand out as leaders, have more influence, more voice. But the California organization is ran pretty smoothly by the majority, usually the majority in what's best for the organization. Then there is the federal faction of the organization. The federal faction is created by original California members. There are California members incarcerated in boarded prisons in the United States. They're ran by a commission. Reynoso is the lead commissioner in the organization. There are commissioners beneath him, and there's a council beneath him. But that is recognized by the California organization as well. The federal commission cannot order the California organization, and the California organization cannot order the federal commission, but we recognize each other's authority. If I was a member from California and went into the BOP, I would be accepted and embraced by the organization. These are 2 distinct factions, which are actually vying for control of the streets right now. We have California members running crews in the streets and federal members paroling, trying to take control of those crews and those territories. So there's a bit of a conflict, but it's not to the point where it'll tear the organization asunder. Then there's the Arizona faction. The Arizona faction was recently recognized by both California and federal faction. It was created by Pete B-Boy Moreno, which is the brother of Mike Moreno, Jesse Pelon Moreno, and Tomas Moreno, all Mexican Mafia members. Pete went to Arizona and was recognized by myself, Jaco Padilla, and Huero Sherm from San Diego. They were vying for recognition because they were at conflict with another organization there, which was another faction of Mexican Mafia not recognized by the 3 entities. These were the Lechugas. These are individuals from the state of Arizona who created their own organization. There's only about 10 members in Arizona that are recognized by the state of California and the BOP. This is considered another appendage of our organization. Arizona is also ran by a mesa, a commission of sorts, which is led by Pete B-Boy Moreno. Sudenos and gang migration. Sudenos are a distinct group of individuals from Southern California. Anybody from below Bakersfield all the way to San Diego is considered a Sudeno. Sudenos utilize the number 13 to identify their adoption of Mexican Mafia ideology. The number 13 has an alphanumeric correspondence. The 13th letter in the alphabet is M. M in Spanish is M. M is the Mexican Mafia. Any gang from Southern California that utilizes this number is, in fact, identifying themselves and their allegiance with the Mexican Mafia. Every state in the Union has gang problems. The simple utilization of the number 13 does not, in and of itself, make them a Sudeno. I think it would be an educated guess to say that the original founders of those gangs were from Southern California. But these gang problems can't be seen as Mexican Mafia affiliation. The simple utilization of the number 13 in and of itself does not identify an individual as being a Sudeno. It merely suggests that the founders of the gang hailed from Southern California. Although they don't have the infrastructure per se as Southern California does and some of the other states that have well-developed organizations, Arizona, BOP, California. These subgroups in rural, urban, and suburban communities are a malignancy really waiting to develop. Left unchecked, they have real potential to become true cancers. Although they have no communication with crew chiefs, señoras, and carnales, the foundation, the template is set. When their gangs were created, they obviously incorporated some Mexican Mafia ideology. The utilization of the number 13 is some indication of that. It's well known that gangs outside even of the Mexican Mafia utilize the same mode of operation, the same basic template. All criminal enterprises that originate from prison use this basic pattern. And it's not a far stretch to imagine that these groups will incorporate some of the practices of existing crews and criminal enterprises in Southern California. And it's not difficult to imagine these individuals reaching out to gain bona fides, true bona fides from real members in Southern California. With the advent of the internet, cell phones and Blackberries, it's not difficult to get in contact with a crew chief in Southern California. Most individuals in Southern California that are well recognized are easily available. And the proliferation of these groups is all but a certainty. Left unchecked, as I mentioned, they have true potential to become massive malignancies. Mexican Mafia and urban street terrorism. What the average citizen doesn't realize is that it's not Al-Qaeda and improvised explosive devices that threaten the streets of Los Angeles. There are tens of thousands of gang members in Los Angeles, and the Hispanic gangs, for the most part, are controlled by the Mexican Mafia. There's an existing infrastructure with well-established, highly reticulated crews. These individual cells of criminal activity, which are vast, a majority of them controlled by the Mexican Mafia. This existing system threatens public safety on a daily basis. Gangs intimidate, inflict violence, commit murder, distribute narcotics, commit extortions on a regular basis. And what the average individual doesn't realize is that behind the scenes is the Mexican Mafia. The Mexican Mafia controls, for the most part, the majority of these illicit activities. One of the things that has to be kept in mind is the Mexican Mafia's interest in controlling gangs. Before the horizontal integration into the Hispanic gang subculture in the early 90s, when we stopped the drive-bys, gangs were pretty much rampant, doing their own thing, no leadership structure. But with the success of stopping the drive-bys, the organization established representatives in every neighborhood, with the few that are resistant to Mexican Mafia ideology, and those are the gangs placed on the green light list. The core motivation for this was financial gain for the organization and enhancement of its power beyond the prison walls. What the average citizen doesn't understand is that the common drive-by shooting is not always the common drive-by shooting. Enforcement in these gang territories or turfs or organizational turfs is brought about by the utilization of violence and intimidation, and therein comes in the intimidation of whole communities on a regular basis. Drug distribution networks in gang territories